Now, whether you detect the beaches or you prefer the old parks, chances are somewhere in a drawer in your house you've got a big pile of ugly old silver that probably looks something like this. Now, the question is, what are you going to do with it? Basically, you got three options. You can sell it as scrap metal, or you can divide it up and give it to your aunties, or you can get yourself right back down to the beach and throw it back where it came from. But what if there were another option? Well, I'm going to propose that some of that jewelry is worth cleaning up and selling as jewelry and not just for the silver weight. So, how do you get it clean? Well, you can invite your friends over and try the old baking soda and tinfoil method, or any number of silver polishes out on the market, or you can buff your guts out with a silver polishing cloth. But I'm going to suggest something else, and it's one of these, a tumbler. Now, a lot of us already have tumblers for cleaning up our clad, but did you know they're also pretty handy for cleaning up large amounts of silver? Now, for your clad, you probably use something like aquarium gravel or something similar, but this isn't going to be the best thing to clean up your silver. Now, you're going to need something called jeweler's mix or jewelry mix stainless steel shot. And as you can see from this picture, it comes in some pretty weird shapes, usually little discs or circles and little what they call needles. Now, this helps it get into all the different nooks and crannies in your jewelry. Now, this is the stuff that I use here. Now, in your search for this stainless steel shot, you're going to come across other stuff like just regular steel shot, for shotgun reloading or whatever. Now, I would avoid this for two reasons. First of all, the round shape isn't going to do as good a job as the specialty jeweler's mix. And also, it isn't stainless and it's going to rust in no time and it's just going to be a big headache. And I know it's a lot cheaper, but it's worth spending the 20 bucks to get a pound bag of the good stuff. Now, obviously, you're going to need a tumbler of some sort. Now, I use what's called a 3-pound Lortone tumbler, which I bought after reading all the reviews on the internet, and it's been just awesome. It's been going for, 20 hours a day for a couple months, and it's been totally fine. A little bit of oil now and then, it's great. Now, I've also heard the Harbor Freight ones are a lot cheaper, but, they seem to get the job done as well. And, of course, there's single barrel and double barrel varieties. So, what you're going to want to do first is select a couple pieces of silver. Not too many. I usually polish about 3 or 4 rings at once. And try to make sure that they're about in the same condition. You don't want a real corroded one with, basically a new-looking one. And you're going to want to put it in the barrel of the tumbler along with a pound of steel shot, and you're going to want to add some water. Now, opinions seem to vary, but you definitely want to make sure everything's covered by about a quarter of an inch up to an inch of water. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you to use dish soap, and Dawn seems to be the most popular one, but I mean, there's a million different kinds of dish soap. Now, this worked fine for me at first, but what started happening after the third or fourth run is the inside of the barrel started to get real tacky and sticky. It was almost like a rubber grease, and it was depositing itself on the rings. And you can see in this picture, if you leave it, it just makes a mess of the rings. Now, I checked online, and it said that a lot of people said, yeah, you're not using enough soap, and a lot of other people said, no, it's too much soap. You're breaking down the barrel of or breaking down the rubber in the barrel. So you know what? Eventually, I just said, forget it, and I sprung for some burnishing compound. Now, I have no affinity to any particular brand, but I use this stuff, and it is amazing. Let me tell you, this costs $6, and this thing is going to last, forever. This is how much I use in each one. I use about 1/6 of an eyedropper, and this stuff just works wonders. So I highly recommend this over dish soap. So once you've secured the lid and you get everything rolling in your tumbler, the next question is, well, how long are you going to let it go for? Now, this really depends on the condition of the silver. Now, if it's pretty shiny as it is and it just needs a little touch-up, it could be as little as 20 or 30 minutes. If it's real corroded, it could be up to 24 hours. Now, I would suggest, especially at the beginning, to err on the side of caution and keep checking it. Okay, the last thing you want to do is to tumble it too long and really damage the rings. So if I were you, the first couple times is just give it a check every hour, every 2 hours, and see how it's coming along. Now, another thing I want to suggest is make sure you change the water at least once or twice during the cycle. You'll see in this picture it gets kind of browny or sometimes black, which is good. It lets you know that the tumbling process is working. It's removing the corrosion. But you don't want to let the water get too dirty, or it may just end up depositing it back onto the silver, and you're kind of just spinning your wheels and going nowhere. Now, when it comes time to when you're finished and you're gonna take your silver out, the best way to do is to get a fine mesh strainer like this, and don't go using your wife's good stuff or your mom's strainer. Just go down to the dollar store and grab one. Now, hopefully, when all's said and done and you dump everything out into the strainer, you're going to see something like this. Hopefully, your silver is going to be as shiny as the stainless steel shot. Now, here's a look at those rings that I threw in originally. Now, as you can see, they're not perfect. It's not going to make them look like new, but they do look a lot better. If you look close here, you can see that this method is not going to take away the gouges or the scratches, but it's going to put a shine on it for sure. Here's another bracelet that I threw in. You can see it was pretty nasty, and after a couple hours of tumbling, not that different. It was definitely a lot shinier, but for stuff like this, there's definitely a limit to how good you can make it look. And here's another trio of rings that actually came out really well. I let these go all night, and they were pretty corroded actually. They were real dark gray when I threw them in, and they came out really good. I'm happy with these ones. Now, before we finish up, I want to talk about heavily corroded items and convoluted surfaces. Now, as I said, this thing is not going to work miracles, and that is especially true with really heavily corroded items. Things that have been in the sand 30, 40, or 50 years. Now, these 4 rings here were in pretty rough condition. I tumbled them for over 24 hours, and I changed the water several times. And basically, nothing changed. All it does, it kind of gives it a sort of a hematite looking surface. It sort of makes it look chrome black. But, it's just not worth the effort. I mean, you're just going to have to decide for yourself that, some items are just meant for the scrap pile. You're not going to fix every single piece of silver using this method. Now, for rings that have convoluted or complicated surfaces, again, you're going to have to be realistic. As you can see on these rings, I let them go for too long. I thought I could get rid of all the black stuff down in between the Roman numerals there, and I left it too long, and you can see what happened. Basically, it sort of ate out, little holes in the actual silver itself, and I essentially destroyed these rings. So you might just have to get used to, a shiny outer surface and sort of a dark patina inside. So for rings like this, barring some amazing chemical stripper that I've never heard of, I think you're just going to have to be realistic with ones like this. All right, before we go, I just wanted to give you a little rundown on the do's and don'ts. So definitely do use stainless steel shot. As we talked about, it's a bit more expensive, but it does an amazing job, and it's gonna last you a really long time. The next thing was, I would definitely recommend putting out a bit of money, $5 or $6 for some burnishing compound. It really does work a lot better than dish soap. You won't run into any problems with it, and it does a really great job. The next thing is, don't overload the tumbler. It's tempting if you have a huge pile of silver to just chuck a whole bunch into the barrel, but just 3 or 4 rings in a 3-pound tumbler. And another thing, if you're going to do necklaces, don't do more than one at once, because they'll get really badly tangled up. Also, change the water often, especially if you're doing really corroded silver. You might have to change it out 2 or 3 times during the cycle. This will make a big difference in the end product of the silver. Also, check the silver often, especially at first when you're just getting an idea of how long it actually takes. It's much better to check it and let it go for another hour or two than to check it too late and see you've damaged something. Also, take the time to clean the shot and the inside of the barrel often. I just use a tiny bit of mild dish soap and just give it a little scrub and a rinse. And I clean the shot as well between each cycle. And finally, I'd say, be realistic about the results. Your silver is going to look a lot better than it did, but it's not going to look like new, especially if it's been in the sand for a long time. So, if you've got a ring that's been in the surf, no matter what you do, it's never going to look like this, or like this, or even like this. But you're going to be able to take a pile of dirty silver that looks like this and have it look like this, which I think is a really big improvement. And you might just be able to make some cash. That's not funny. Make some cash, or maybe you can give it to your girlfriend, or hey, maybe even your wife. And if they don't take it well, I'm sure your quirky old grandma will.